And I know that we have a little bit of a dark patch in here that doesn't belong. So you might, after you complete this, kind of go over this with a little bit thicker paint to cover that guy up. Like that. Okay, just like that. And I feel like we could also add a little bit lighter. It feels a little too dark. There we go. All right, so moving forward, we're going to let that dry, and we're going to pretend like there's no trees or no little blotchy things there, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is actually start our water in here. So we want to pick up, once again, that whole stacking method idea. Want to pick up our dark color. I would say the same exact color as you used for the trees, since it is that reflection, right? I'll pick that up. That looks about right. I'd use a medium-sized brush for the tips. Let me get the red again. For the tips in here, and then a large brush for this part. All right. So what I'd suggest doing is we can put this, let me make that bigger. Put this down like so with our big brush. And then when we feel like we have enough of that solid tone in there, then we can grab our smaller brush and go ahead and pull downward. So it's very important that you have enough time to do this section, because it all has to be done while the paint is still wet. If you have to be interrupted for violin or whatnot, right? And then you wait for a day, it might not look the same because it might dry too much, okay? So just keep that in mind. Put a little bit in there. See, I'm kind of letting some of the edge go into that rock there. That's totally fine. I think it's better to kind of cover it up a bit and then add it again than try to go around it and get one of those ghost lines. Right on the edge, it doesn't like to work as much. There we go. All right, so once we have that, you might want to do a couple things. The first thing I'd say is grab your middle tone blue, the one that we started with today, and go ahead and blend these edges together a little. Not soft like this transition, more of like a firmer edge. All right, so don't get too crazy with the blending. We want it to not be too sharp. All right, and then once again, before this section dries, we're gonna select this color up here. Okay, so we can make that with our umber and maybe a little bit of gray. Okay, but mainly the umber and the white. And go ahead and pull this in on the other side. And that's our mountain color, really. I know there's some blue and some other colors in there, but right now we're trying to focus on doing general to specific. All right. So once you have that, this is where the fun comes in. You are going to take a big, if you have a fan brush, that'd be good. If you don't have a fan brush, maybe a flat brush. Like, do you see this tool in here? So that's like a flat brush there with a square corner. And you're going to go in not the wide side, but so it's narrower. And do this. Do you see how it's starting to push it around? So the paint has to be very wet, and you have to have enough on the surface to be able to do this. You might have done this in the past by accident. Okay. And just kind of push it around like that. See how it's starting to look more like those ripples in there? That's kind of what we're going for. All right, so there's our ripples. And the reason why we want to make sure that this looks kind of zigzaggy like this is because, our water has a little movement to it but we also don't want it to look exactly like our trees up there. That's our main event with the more detail and the little branches and stuff. And this part in here is more painterly or more impressionistic, however you want to think about it. You can also pull a little bit more out. If you see, like, for instance, I'm seeing a couple little bits in here. That's why you have to have enough paint on there, right? Little bits in there, maybe a couple in here. And make it look more like those little trees, right? So the next part in here, so remember this is all in one sitting, this whole entire water body, okay? And we're gonna choose, this color here. And notice how it's slightly darker than the sky directly above it. So here's the selected color if you look up here, okay? That's the selected color of the water. And that's the selected color of the sky. So as you can see, the sky's a little bit more bright than the water, okay? So I'm gonna pick that, and I'm gonna put it all in here, just like that. All right. Maybe I take a little bit more of that umber mixture, kind of blend those two in. And then I'm going to take the dark color. And there's no real rhyme or reason order for this. You can kind of do it how you want, just as long as you leave this ripple effect thing for last. Because if you try to do it with just the brush, it's going to look like this. And that doesn't look so nice. So I'm putting in the little trees. There are my little trees. And then up here, or I should say down there, gets quite a bit darker. So remember, this whole section still wet into wet, right? This whole jam. Like I said, you can go back and forth between the two, kind of join them up together. And then we can take our blendage tool here. So, like I said, I know that mine is like a digital blending tool. You can go ahead and take like a fan brush or one of those little flat brushes like I showed you. And just go back and forth. I'm not going to say take a round brush, only because I feel like that's not going to work as well for what we're trying to do. All right. So now that we have that in there, last